and you could tick those off while you're working on the bigger master. Is that kind of what I'm...
That's kind of the goal.
Okay, okay. So, I mean, my thought is the next step. Oh, I'm sorry. My feeling is the next step is to, let's start working on the goals then. Whether, however formal or informal that may be.
Right. I think it sounds good. What do you think, Mr. President?
I agree. I think in order to do anything, we have to have the goals, and we have to have an understanding as a board and including the staff how to get there.
Right.
So you really kind of ascertain whether it is truly feasible and in what kind of time frame. I think that if you were to identify a number of projects from smallest to major, I think that what we need to know is how quickly could these projects be undertaken and completed, more importantly. What would the cost of the projects be? Does it involve just our agency, or does it involve outside authority over whatever we want to achieve?
Right.
And I think that if you start there and build a list and work your way through it, I think ultimately it will be a better way to attack things instead of one major plan. So I agree. I don't know how you want to go about identifying the projects. What's your idea for that?
That's why I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what we feel is the biggest priority is. What is the priorities in our community?
We discussed, Anthony, maybe sending out like Survey Monkey to the community.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
Del Taco.
Yeah, well, it's to the whole community, everybody can do things online, it's, pretty easy.
Yeah, Survey Monkey would be an easy way to
Easy
do
way
that.
to do it. I've never done it, so it'd be new, but,
So we could do a survey, we can send it out to the nonprofit groups in our community and some of the other agencies that operate in our community as well to
But
get
really,
ideas.
kind of anybody
can do it to
that have,
anybody, too.
it's not, I wouldn't pigeonhole it.
So, two points to that. Are we going to be soliciting feedback by way of a survey to just other organizations or to all of the people of the community?
Right, and that's the question, because I know when I was first looked at, there was a question of the costs and everything else. One thing I have learned from attending these sort of planning online seminars is that it's not so much the certain groups or people that you talk to, it's how you structure your questions. Because if you start asking people to think like Mr. Dodds, that not everyone has the same experience as Mr. Dodds. One of the examples they threw out, is talk about streets. Cities talk about streets all the time. Well, how did everyone get to this meeting? You probably drove, right? Did anyone walk? No. Why is that? Well, it's not safe. Cars are doing 40 miles an hour down the street. Oh, okay, right. There's no sidewalk between my house and the CS. You start getting things like that. So it's going to be how we word a lot of these
I think you could veer it off to the way that I've seen some survey methods, like, are you a business or are you a community?
Right.
You press one and it takes you down one and it takes you down another.
Yeah, you could do it like that.
I personally think that the master plan doesn't necessarily encompass things that aren't under the umbrella of the CSD. That big part of what we do is providing the service that we're designed to provide under the things that we do. So having the plan to make those things operate. I'm going to reserve myself to the next meeting because I don't want to get hit by Kelly because we only got about 15, 14 more minutes. But the way I see it is we have 5 different entities involved in our CSD, and they're like rolling wheels on a vehicle. And they all got to roll and produce about the same speed.
Right.
And you can't push one further than the other because then things start falling apart. As far as the fire department go, I started thinking about with this presentation all the different things that we are doing and where we need to go. And I would say, yeah, there's a master plan. Has it been put on paper and vetted and put through everybody to decide? It's more of an operational plan to keep up with the service it needs to provide. We've bought safety equipment, BAs, recruiting, new engine. But we also recognize a lot of things that are shortcomings with facility, coverage, the growth of this town and the needs that it needs. We need to meet those needs. So with the master plan, it really needs to focus on the services that we're currently providing, and those services need to be cohesive with each other, because I know right now, and what we've really focused on is this need for our wastewater facility to be able to maintain the district's needs. It needs to function. So that has to be addressed, and with that, the rest of the departments need to function around, but they also have their needs too. So as long as the plan for each one of those entities are working cohesive, we can move forward. And I know Kelly has plans, and some of them are mandated that he has them in order to function for licensure. The fire department's not stuck so much under those restrictions, but we do have mandates that we have to provide a level of service. In the next meeting, I'm going to offer to bring back a plan in writing that says where we're at, where we're going. We have immediate needs that are going to be in our short or near future, and then be able to meet the needs that are 20 to 25 years from now. This building was built 20 years ago, and when it was built, I'm sure the design was not to have a CSD jammed in here with a fire department sitting in an app bay with a door open listening to traffic. So it obviously needs a better plan, and that's part of that. And so I'll save all that for the next meeting, but it needs to all work together. That's a big thing. So talking about things that we don't have purview under that we would like in our community is great, but as long as the things that we do are functioning really well, and we have that in writing and we're following it, we'll be able to do those other things.
So to Rob's point, it's nice to get the community involved, but that's kind of the reason why we've been elected as directors. To kind of, we know the numbers, we know the finances and everything. So, is it going to be helpful? Is it to have a survey? What would you like in your community? Well, we would like, this, that, or the other, and it's like obvious, or okay, that's totally unfeasible. Can't do it.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking about. I can just think of a number of things that people would say, and of course that would be nice, but that's not realistic. So I'm not sure how much doing an all-encompass survey is helpful, unless you guys just want to see what people are thinking. But
Maybe not now.
What if you surveyed the businesses first? And because they would be a revenue source for whatever you wanted to put in. So if the trees are going to go in downtown and that's going to beautify the downtown and make people want to come in, they're going to actually generate revenue from that. Versus a homeowner might say, well, I'm kind of happy with the way the town is, and if they don't have any skin in the game, right, or they're not going to really generate revenue other than see their property value go up, but nobody sees that as money in their hand right now. Versus the business is going to say, and the perfect example is the winery, or the sign on the thing. Okay, yeah, well, we see that as a potential. I'd love to see my winery's name on a sign pointing where it's at, right? Versus, does the homeowner really care to see the sign? Right? We're trying to attract tourists, where that helps the downtown, which then helps the property value, but not necessarily just, hey, what would you like to see downtown? Well, as a homeowner, you might not want to see all those things downtown that you don't see as a long-term benefit after the downtown does start to attract, all those other things that the businesses would like to see. Or if I'm a business downtown, I might say, well, I would be willing to help out in a way that beautifies the downtown and makes it more appealing. Where as a homeowner, you might not.
Or as a business owner, you may say, well, it'd be nice if you had this, and this service in town.
Yes.
Right.
Instead, I'm having to drive all the way to Paso because you guys
Right.
just don't have this service.
I agree with that. I think from my perspective, in my experience with surveys, I think people tend to be apathetic. They don't generally respond to surveys unless there's some incentive, like you
Yeah.
respond to a survey and get $10. I'm not gonna pay people to respond to a survey.
I'm not
And two,
No.
I think if you were to just blast the survey out to everyone in the community and ask, what do you think we should do in the community? You're gonna have people say, let's build a casino. I want a Harley dealership. I want 3 more bars, a
Right.
strip club, an airport. You know, and it's gonna be
Exactly.
all over the map.
Yes.
And I think it won't really be, not only will it not be relevant, it won't be helpful because again, it's gonna be these ideas that we obviously can't capitalize on and produce. So again, I agree with Mr. Kardashian. I think surveying the businesses, if we're going to survey, would be a better plan.
It's a
Or
strategic question.
if we, with strategic questions, or if we were to send a survey or poll to everybody, you give them choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we've identified
100%.
these things which we think are feasible for the community. And we plan on taking the steps to put this plan in motion. Which ones do you think are most beneficial first?
Yeah,
Something
check
like
this,
that.
yeah.
Yes.
1, 2,
You know,
3.
right.
Yeah, labels.
So I think that would be valuable, but just a generic survey or poll, I think is gonna be
It's going to become a mess.
irrelevant. It won't really generate anything useful.
But even to that point, it's going to be usually the ones that are take priority are the ones that are maybe
Sure.
quickest to, you know, easiest to, you know, get done, less expensive, cost effective, and things like that. So.
Alternatively, you can look at this as, this is a public meeting.
Mhm.
It was posted so people who are interested could be here and provide valuable input from the community. So instead, if we are doing what we can for the benefit of the community, we can charge it as
I mean, we're also citizens of the community.
Yes.
We also live here. So some of us have lived here for our whole lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And that's also part of what they talked about when it came to looking at those visual assessments is that the life that I live and what I see, you know, or the business across the street is going to be completely different for each and every person. As an example, you look at the mission, okay? We talk about the mission. We talk about the fact that it draws tourists into town to support businesses. Okay, well, who here has actually been inside the mission church building? Okay, has anyone been inside the mission church building? Okay, 1, 2, you know, not everybody. Okay, well, we talk about it. We talk about the dog park, you know, possibly going in and called the Recreational Park. Well, how many of us have actually been down to the dog park? We talk about those things, but what does that even mean? I think also surveying the businesses would be good, them and the nonprofits only because those people have the most financial skin in the game for the community. And I know that some of them they're struggling as well, and they've been here for 50 to 100 years. And obviously, if you ask a lot of those people, you don't ask them, what do you need more? And they're going to say money, right? No, we don't want to answer that. We can work on the questions, tailor it down so we can get an idea of what might be potential goals that we can add on to. So maybe it's sort of like 5 questions.
So maybe we need to find out our goals first, like what I'm getting from you guys for the next meeting
yes.
is what our goals are
Mhm.
and a plan from staff from each fund of what their plans are, the future.
Mhm.
You know, water, sewer, yeah, they have a big, huge master plan coming and that's kind of taken care of. But lighting, fire, all that,
Mhm.
because that's about 2 hours right there.
Yes.
So,
Well, another part of it is that when we have to plan things and design things, for instance, you know, a lot of people don't know what the undertaking of building a wastewater treatment facility is.
Sure.
So there's a lot of steps, and a lot of people may not understand the steps that take place to get to the final facility that needs to be built.
Mhm.
Same with the fire department. They don't know what steps we're taking to provide that service, what's necessary, what's really not necessary. And they watch Rescue 911 and they're like, how come we don't have a big ass ladder truck sitting in here? And it's like, well, we don't need one, but does the community know that? Do they know why we do or don't have one of those? And so sometimes it's good to hear suggestions and everything, but they have to trust us. We've been hired or elected or whatever to provide these services, and it's good to let everybody know what we're doing and justify it. But as far as getting some of the input on how to get to where we need to go, they may not understand why we have to do certain things that we need to do to get there.
Exactly, yes.
So we can work on our basic services that we provide, put together goals for those, the district in general. We can also find out if there's anything that we missed from the community, the businesses and those people.
Yeah, and you need to if you're going to do a survey to businesses, it needs to be like 5 questions.
Yes, not 20 questions. I've looked at those online and I get fed up about 10 questions.
But don't you think you guys need your goals before you
Yes.
ask?
Yes.
others?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm putting that on the next.
Yeah.
Next. Okay,
Should have text your answer too on the survey.
yeah.
2 minutes.
What about Anthony's, the walking around town, checking things out?
We can wait on that until we figure out what goals are.
We do have to legally, we have to invite the public. They can come with us, or we can get a bus and rent a bus. But when you do something like that, you have to have the public. I'm just saying you have to have the public.
My suggestion would be to poll the board members and the staff, if you like, and see what the internal impression is, and then based on that, poll the commercial community and see what their impression is. But it's a fine line between what we can and can't spend money on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, sending out something with the bill or sending out something to 38 businesses is not very costly. But if you were to take on a $10,000 or $20,000 project that's not under one of the umbrellas that we manage, then you could open yourself up to some sort of legal action against us.
Sure.
With circling back to the sign example, we don't have any control over roads. So we would be asking the county for permission to put up signs. And if the county's already against it, they're obviously not going to be very helpful.
I actually asked David from Laverne about that. I pulled him outside the town, come to the CSD Corporation meeting, and I asked him about the signs in general. And he said those are actually considered hardscaping, and they can be done as a landscaping service.
So, and if that's
But it's if you look at, the first thing you think is, okay, well, can we do that? Maybe, maybe not. Ask some questions and then go from there. Because there's going to be things that are going to be outrageous initially. I mean, look, if we put trees around the sewer plant and it looks like a friggin' car that grazes land values, I mean, that's...
So to your point, Kelly, what you're saying is just the directors and the staff just write their list, bring it to the next meeting, see if we all drive anyway, right?
basically
For
just
fun.
open it up there as
As a starting
a
point.
catch-all. Okay, anything and everything that you could possibly want, and combine that list. There's going to be things that overlap, and there's going to be
Yes.
things that are just way out in left field.
Well, maybe we
So-
already drive
Yeah.
on those things. So,
But
yeah.
then you have the problems where we all are doing, we're doing our jobs. The board is supervising the same 5 departments doing the same thing generally all the time. So, not to say anybody's complacent, but you get complacent and you get kind of down a path. Whereas we might all come to some sort of conclusion that we need, more landscaping on Mission Street. And then you put it out to the commercial population and they say, well, that's not going to help. My customers don't care about the landscape. So then you say, okay, well, maybe we don't focus on that. But if we have a general idea of where we're at, then poll them, see where they're at, and see what kind of overlaps. But I don't want to only focus on what we're doing, because there might be something close to what we're doing that we can partner with the county on and get some grant money from the county to pay for it, where we're not incurring that cost ourselves, but we're getting it done. So I didn't mean to give that impression that we shouldn't look at anything other than our 5 functions, but it may be also that, okay, everybody thinks we need to have, she's drainage because it popped in my head, but everybody thinks we need to take that over. well, maybe then we need to start looking at taking that over and what that would mean. I'll tell you right now, it's probably not going to work, but be just an example. But the more ideas you get, it's more data, and more data can get you a better result.
Well, as staff though, if we are producing this information to bring to the next meeting, you guys come up with goals, we come up with plans for each fund. We need direction, or we're gonna be going in a circle of what exactly do you want next 5 years, 10 years, just our random ideas of all staff? Because it's such a huge, it could be so huge, an undertaking. We could spend hours.
Let's try not to spend hours on a mission statement.
Yes.
At this point, if we were just amassing ideas, then you would filter through those ideas to see how long each one would take.
Okay.
Some of them you could probably do next week. Some of them you probably wouldn't be able to do for 10 years. And it's all going to depend on how many people have to be involved and what the overall cost is,
I'm
and
trying to
whether or
figure
not
out how
that's our
this next
purview.
meeting's gonna look.
So if we create some goals, we can create goals, doesn't matter how, just throw ideas out there, kind of spaghetti on the wall, but if we're gonna throw an idea out there, we should probably throw out maybe, why we say that we think we should do this. So then we can have some, understanding, so then when we look at that, we don't go, where the heck did this come from?
So do you guys want staff to give a small presentation on where each fund is going? And then you guys come up throwing out goals and ideas for the next meeting?
Or do we want to maybe submit it in privately, so then if for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable sharing them in the board meeting, can get submitted all as a...
Yeah, well, it's public.
Is it possible for directors to submit their goals ahead of time to the meeting? Ahead of the meeting to you, and then you kind of compile liked ones? Is that possible?
Yeah, it could get a little muddy. I don't want
Okay.
to deter anybody's voice because you guys are
Okay.
one as a whole.
Oops. Yeah, because I'm just thinking
I mean, do you guys
Like
need
10
to
goals.
know where each
Like 10
department is going? Do you have a good idea, or do you need more information on that?
I would say myself, no. Not. I mean, the water and sewer, yes.
Well, that's coming. Huge.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not for the goals that I'm
Well,
thinking
we don't want
of,
to waste our time
that-
as staff for getting the stuff that you guys don't need.
Yeah.
I would say we would get that after we've identified some feasible goals.
Okay.
Yeah,
Makes more
that's,
sense.
So the
that would
next-
make more sense, yes.
We'll do another, we have a new word, informal session about goals
Okay.
and ideas. Okay.
Yeah, so, and we should be bringing maybe 10, directors need to
Yeah, I
bring
would
at
say-
least 10,
I would say 10 probably is a good number.
so, year,
10.
And,
a ye-
15?
goals that you want to see in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, let me know,
Right.
whatever you
What do you
think.
think, Anthony?
Well, there's some stuff that we can obviously work on in the next 5 years. I mean, planning a tree shouldn't take 10 years to do again.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that you could think short term and long term.
Yeah, and when you were
Yeah,
going to
goals.
write them, you could probably just,
Yeah.
box them out.
Yes.
And that's what I will do with my portion of it when I get those from you guys. If they're much the same for 5 years, we'll call them out like that.
But I guess what I'm saying is we don't need to come up with 50,
No.
just top 10,
Yes.
the top 10, yeah,
And I'll group your guys' in, 5, 10, 15-year goals.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. And you want them ahead
If
of
you
time?
say trees and he says trees, well, you see trees.
So you want them ahead of time?
Yes.
Okay, how soon ahead of time?
The Thursday before the meeting.
Oh, really?
Yep.
For which meeting?
The next, whatever.
When you guys
Oh,
decide the
the
next
workshop
meeting's gonna be.
November.
And if you guys don't have it right now, we have a meeting coming up on the 24th, so we can decide to have, you guys can make that decision. We just don't have everybody here right now, so it's hard to make that decision. I did hear from Hector, he just forgot because its harvest has started, but
Oh,
he'll
yeah.
definitely be here on the 24th. We
Okay.
just planned this so while ago that it's just got to harvest and Welcome to Central Coast.
So we have our next regular meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, we have it on the 24th. Yeah,
Right.
So that's,
So you're talking about a special meeting after that? Is that what we're talking about?
you guys want to do it every month or every other month? Every other month would be a lot more beneficial to staff because we have a lot to do.
Well,
If we set up goals, then we can stretch it out after that point, or we can then. But I don't. What part is going to be the hardest part for staff?
Can I?
Thanks.
Coming to the meeting and being here.
so just to put it out there, we have Ward Rooney who's coming on to the board,
Yes.
and I would hope that he would put in input also, but maybe we get goals from the directors over the next couple months and get them all compiled. If we get them,
Yeah.
let's say we get them by mid-October, then by November we can kind of get a basic outline of what it would take to plant trees, or what it would take to plant community, or get a community garden. General idea of what that would be.
Yes.
And then we can bring that back in November or December at a more structured meeting and have a more productive use of our time.
With the directors that are here.
I haven't looked at the bylaws in a little more detail, but I'm sure the board can create a committee, a subcommittee of directors to be assigned, to the strategic planning and long-term goals. You may be able to create like a board with a board member and an employee to kind of have all of those perspectives on things and report back to the board at that kind of regular interval, whether it's monthly or every other month. Having a smaller group sometimes is a little bit easier to, manage and to work. I do have some ideas about surveys. I can table that till the next discussion. However, since you've all kind of been there and done that,
Rob, tell her how much those worked out for us.
Look, the committees?
Yeah.
Number 1.
Are you telling her on the phone nicely?
No.
The other question I would have with the timeline is, because we have a lot of potential new developments coming in that are going to be spilling over to those other tax rate areas. What are the timeline on those projects? Because we probably want to be ahead of half of those if we're going to do anything that affects them.
There's really,
I think the airports are a big example.
Like subdivisions you're talking about?
there's several subdivisions that are kind of finding their way through the process. There is no definite timeline on when they're gonna come on. So it'd be really hard to tell. You'd almost have to take them on one at a time. And because, like the airport, for example, there's going to have to be a whole other 218 process for that property. So some of these things could be addressed during that process. If you were to go through right now and try to clean up the property tax areas, I don't know how successful we would be.
I think that I know that I submitted the original thing back in January, February. That would have helped clean up the property tax rate areas. Those things are, I think legal has referred to the term Herculean a bit, and it's just, yes. It's just, I know it becomes a lot more difficult to clean that stuff up after the subdivision is built.
Well,
And then we're chasing the horse out the barn. That's the only thing. I mean, I don't want to overload staff time, but I don't want us to get to the point where we're trying to put stuff together and we're now having to pick up other messes that I want to keep our foundation stable and not chase after other problems.
well, that's going to have to be something that we address, because a lot of these new developments are in areas that only pay fire
Yes.
or lighting or whatever. trying to get too far ahead of the curve may not help us if they don't develop it ever. Then we
Sure.
spent money on for nothing. And if they develop it into something that is not what we anticipated, then we could also be up a creek. So, as those developments come to us and say, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what we're sure we're going to do, then that would be the time to start that. Because it's going to take a year, a couple years to get through that. Same amount of time pretty much as it takes to get out of the ground.
For legal, at what point can you not? I'm trying to figure out what the point is of a vested track map, and where you can like create like construction design standards. I'm trying to have an example. Is there like a certain like point? Like if someone has a vested track map, we can change the construction design standards or whatever else on that.
So if you have a vested track map with the county, that doesn't mean anything to us.
Okay.
Where the end of the line for us is when we sign their plans saying this is what standard you're being held to for this plan.
Okay.
So, like at the airport, their requirements will be whatever it is when they come to us, and we are finally happy with it, and we sign on the dotted line saying this is the plan that we're happy with. That's what they'll be held to. But if they go back and say, oh, you know what, we had 200 houses, but now we want 250 houses, that opens it all up again, and you start all over.
Okay.
So having a vested tract map of the county only secures the number of lots. That doesn't do anything to us.
Okay.
So with regard to that airport property, the owner was told that they need to offset ag land. They were told by the county that they need to go purchase ag land to offset the ag land that they're taking out. Right? So yeah. So that's what.
ag though, is it?
Anyway, so he said instead of doing that, he wanted to invest $3 million into the downtown of Centerville. How do we get behind that and make sure that the county hears the wishes of us, and because that's helpful to get some projects going.
So in that particular case, I wasn't aware of the ag land portion, but I had talked to the realtor and the owner, and in our discussions, they didn't want to build the commercial out there. They're required to have a commercial component. And they didn't want to build the commercial out there because it wasn't going to be as beneficial as building commercial downtown. And they wanted to spend that same money downtown to put in infrastructure along Mission Street, to improve Mission Street so that it would help